I'm Sydney Miller. This is my grandpa, Larry Rutledge. I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
What type of house did you live in as a child?
Well, we were poor. The house actually was built, framed up to be a three-car garage, but the apartment building we lived in, the landlord decided to make that into another apartment. So actually lived in a converted three-car garage.
Really? Did you have to buy the fuel, or was this a chore such as cutting wood with which you had help to do?
Well, we had what they called a fuel oil furnace, and it was just a small apparatus that sat in the middle of the room, and we had to put fuel oil in it. We had to go outside to a fuel shed and fill 3-gallon cans of fuel oil, and then take it into the house and fill the tank in the back of the furnace. And that radiated heat throughout the house.
Cool. Did you always have electricity? If not, when did you get it?
I can't remember ever being without electricity where I grew up. We always had that.
What was your position in your family, oldest or youngest?
I was in the middle.
Oh.
I had a younger brother, or excuse me, I had an older brother and sister and 2 younger sisters.
Did you buy or make your own clothing?
It was more hand-me-down stuff. So I basically got my older brother's clothing. I don't recall going out and buying a lot of clothes back in those days.
How did you get your mail?
We didn't have, the town I grew up in was very small, about population 450. We didn't have mail carriers, so we had to go up to the post office. Everybody had post office boxes that we went up, and that's where we got our mail.
Oh. What did your father do for a living?
He worked at Caterpillar and also did some odd jobs. He worked second shift, night shift most of the time that we were growing up, so he worked during the day. One of the interesting things he did was he worked with an older gentleman in town that had bees, that had beehives and stuff, and he helped him do that, working with bees.
Did your mother ever work outside of home?
After all of the kids were pretty much in high school age, or that age, she went out and she became a nursing home administrator. But she pretty well stayed at home while the kids were growing up.
Did your family have a garden?
No, we did not have a garden.
What did Sunday mean to you?
It meant going to church. Mom was very much in favor of us going to church, so we did that.
How did you spend Christmas?
Well, as I told you, we grew up in an apartment building, and the landlord was a strong German Lutheran immigrant, and he always bought a Christmas tree for his church, and then also a tree for the main breezeway of his apartment. And he would always invite me to go out to the timber, and we would cut down 2 trees and bring them home.
Really? What was his name?
His name was G.B. Mann, M-A-N-N. He was a very interesting gentleman. He was the town blacksmith, did things like shoeing horses, and he had a forge, and he would heat metal up and bend it to whatever needed to be. Did a lot of farm implements, discs and grinding axes and things like that. So I spent a lot of time with him.
Do you remember any blizzards or tornadoes or flood?
I just remember growing up, it seemed like every winter we had just tons of snow. So when I was growing up, that we really enjoyed getting out and sledding and making snow forts and things like that.
Who was your best friend?
My best friend was a guy we called Butch Norman.
Butch. What did you and your friends do when you went together?
Well, we, the small town we were raised in, there wasn't a whole lot of things to do for kids, so we had to invent our own fun. So we played a lot of basketball, and we just invented fun things to do, unlike probably what you're doing at your age. Anyway, we'll just leave it at that.
Did you ever learn to swim?
Oh yes, learned to swim probably when I was about 10 years old.
That's my age. How large or small were the stores?
Well, back in those days, Sydney, we didn't have shopping malls or anything like that. So every town supported, the community and the surrounding farm folks. So our little town had a main street that was basically 2 blocks long, and we had a grocery store and the post office and a restaurant and a couple taverns and a barber shop and a small little library and a bank, and that was pretty much it. So everybody did their shopping local, because like I say, we didn't have shopping malls like we do today, so everybody tended to shop in their own little town. So every little town had their own grocery store and places like that.
Did you or your family own a horse and a buggy?
My parents did. My grandparents had a horse and buggy.
So what did you guys drive to get this?
We had a car.
A car.
I think the first car I can remember us having was like a 1950 Ford. 1950.
Who did you admire most when you were young?
That's a pretty good question. I would say probably the landlord of the apartment complex where we lived, the GB man we talked about earlier. He was the town blacksmith, and I spent a lot of time working around him, watching him shape metal, and he would shoe horses occasionally too. And he was just a very neat guy to work around. He never did at any point in time say, get out of the way, kid, you're going to get hurt. It was always more like, hey, come here, let me show you how this works, kind of stuff. So he's really neat, and I learned a lot of stuff from Mr. Man.
When you were small, what did you hope to do when you grew up?
I always wanted to be an architect, but I ended up in engineering, so it's kind of similar. But I wanted to be an architect when I was a young boy.
Who is your favorite radio, movie, or singing stars?
Favorite movie star would be probably Gary Cooper. Singing would be, as you know, the Beach Boys. And what was the other one? Movie? Radio. Well, when I was in the service over in Germany and the early 70s, we used to have, our entertainment was radio only, Armed Forces Radio Network, and I used to love to listen to Gunsmoke and R. Miss Brooks and The Shadow and programs like that. It was when that was the only form of entertainment, because we didn't have television, so radio became very, it was really kind of neat to listen to. So those programs.
And your son was born in Germany, right?
That is correct. Marty, our first son, was born in Fürth, Germany in 1970 when we were over there.
Well, that's all the questions I have.
Excuse me, it was actually 1971.
Anyway, thank you for your time.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you about this. I hope it goes well for you.
Thank you. Goodbye.